Africa, there are no enough emphasis into these things like creativity, emotional thinking, critical thinking, creative thinking, collaborative working, which is a core and foundation part of the soft skills. And also, most of workers, people who are already in work right now, there's no any emphasis on them reskilling or upskilling, which is another challenge. And the danger of that is that in the next few years, not only will we have young people who are looking to enter into the job market, those who are already in the job market, they will also be irrelevant to that job market, which means they'll be also phased out. If you understand what I'm trying to say. Exactly. But also, what we are seeing right now, the definition of who is a smart person is also changing. Initially, it was purely around knowledge. If you know more, if you're exposed more, then you are a smart person. But right now, it's all about adaptive learning. All this changing. If you can't unlearn, learn, and relearn, you're actually irrelevant to the world we are living in today. I know you have done so many things completely different from what you did at school. I'm a software engineer. I did computer science and electronics. And right now I'm an expert in innovation and entrepreneurship, which has nothing to do with my college degree. That is where the world is ending. From a career perspective, if you look at our grandfathers, their focus was you need to stay in one job until you're 60. You need to start school, you need to get a job, you need to work until you retire. And my father worked at Tanzania Port Authority for more than 40 years. I can't stay in one place for 5 days. That tells you a lot about the perspective of where the market is heading, how do we perceive jobs, and what the future of work will look like. While in the past few years, work was supposed to be a place where you actually go and do work. Right now, you can work from anywhere, and COVID-19 has accelerated this. The definition of how those should look like has also changed. While my father will see Lee Iacocca as a billionaire, we are seeing Mark Zuckerberg as a billionaire with a new look. Even the perspective of how corporate culture, corporate setup, corporate dressing should look like is also changing. The future of work is about flexible work, which means people will be working anytime, anywhere, and they won't be evaluated based on the amount of hours they've been at the office, but based on the efficiency and productivity as well as contribution. And also this person called an employee will also change. Instead of people are so much obsessed to go to work from 9 to 5, what we'll see is that people can go to work at any time. Instead of people working in a corporate office, people work from anywhere. They can work in a restaurant, at a nightclub, in a bar, as long as they deliver. Instead of people overly relying on heavy equipment, people will work using devices, remote devices, their smartphones, they can work from anywhere. Instead of focusing on input, what is coming, they'll only focus on results, the output. Instead of focusing on jumping into corporate ladder, people, they want to create their own ladder, creating their own career paths and things like that. The future of work will so much be driven by digital platform. We'll see freelance economy, we'll see gig economy, a lot of gig works, we'll see a lot of collaboration platforms and new management approach. So if you stick to the old ways, chances are this will force you to change abruptly. And if you're not prepared, some of this might force you out. If you look at, because now we're talking about Work 4.0, where we are coming from, the focus initially was in agriculture, and people, in order to work, they need to go to the farm. And then eventually we went to the factory, which is the industrial age. For you to work, you need to go to the factory, and then we come into the information age where you are able to do everything within your computer, and then you'll be working in a physical office, a corporate setup. But in the creativity age, all you need is your laptop or a smartphone, and you can be able to respond to your email, to engage with your client, to deliver a report, and also to do an assessment of an important work. The future of work is looking at improving customer experience, speed of innovation, increased productivity, increased effectiveness, as well as decision making. So we also see things what we call augmented intelligence, human beings and machines working together to improve efficiency in most crucial sectors, and it's already happening in mature markets. Ukiangalia, if you look at the context sasa ya nyumbani, already some of the work, things like file managers, people who are doing procurement, people who are doing repetitive tasks, wako kwenye threat kubwa sana ya kuwa disrupted with this kind of technologies, because I no longer need to hire a file manager while I have Google Drive to manage my files. You know, if I have an e-procurement system in my office, I don't need to hire multiple procurement officers. If I can do screening, digital screening to hire for new employees, I only need one person once the screening is done to tell me this is the right person based on human intuition compared to what we used to do before. So the evolution of work will push us into working more customized work, because most of the work might be done by the machine already. It will focus more on us sharing information instead of holding information at one place. And instead of having centralized leadership where Mihail is the CEO, he knows everything, he's the center of knowledge, we'll have decentralized leadership where people can make decisions where they are. They'll be forced to adapt different approaches and resources to make their own decision. And instead of just relying on emails, there'll be different tools, collaboration tools. People will be working on Slack, people will be working on Telegram, people working on different tools just to increase efficiency within corporate setup. And instead of focusing just on knowledge, I'm a scientist, I published this and this paper. We all know the most intelligent professor right now is Professor Google. So people will be focused on adaptive learning. What can I learn within a specific line of what I do? So what should you guys do? And by guys, I mean young people who are still at the university right now, or they're about to get into the job market. First of all, they should understand the world is moving, and it's moving very fast. They need to unlearn everything they know. They need to relearn everything new, and they need to keep learning. The good thing is that right now, education and knowledge is very cheap, and they can be able to access it anywhere. With 2 GB of data, they can be able to do a full diploma course online at Allison, you know. Google offers things like Google Digital Skills Africa. IBM, they have a platform, IBM Digital Nation Africa, which offers skills on data analytics, on blockchain, on artificial intelligence, all these new emerging technologies. But beyond those complex technologies, there's some basic foundational information in courses like digital marketing, how to use social media marketing, how to do graphics designing, photography, videography. These are the skills that will be highly on demand in the world we are operating today. And through platforms like Skillshare, Coursera, Udemy, they can be able to learn these skills. So they need to learn so that they can be relevant to the job market. And another thing which is very important that they're supposed to be doing is to do some sort of a self-assessment and analyze the skills they have and what the market needs. What is the gap? If the gap is too wide, then they shouldn't waste their time even to go to the job interview. because people only care on what you have if it can be able to deliver to their own expectations. And another thing which is very, very important, the future of work is not about robots and machines. It's about creativity, it's about being able to work in collaboration, it's about being critical thinkers, it's about being able to work in teams, it's about being able to communicate and things like that. Technology is just coming in to facilitate that process. And while this process was supposed to be slow, because of COVID-19 and all the situations that have been happening, is even going faster. So we'll see a lot of young people now going out of jobs because most companies are doing business process engineering. They're only remaining with essential people within their companies as they do more automation and digitalization. So there is a lot happening right now, and there's a push for young people as well as people already in the market to try to learn new things and to make sure they stay relevant in the market. So that's my presentation.
Thank you very much.
I've just spent 15 minutes, and now we can open up for the discussion.
Okay, so while I get my thoughts together, I think I'll look at the first question. Kuna dada Sandra Chogo, another technologist and also a big promoter of blockchain in Tanzania, and she's asking, we're talking about the future of work. When is this future starting? That's I think that will get us into the conversation and the topic that we want to get into. When is this future starting? Has it started? Is it starting? Where is it exactly?
I think that's a very good question. Actually, I think calling it a future of work is not a correct word because it has already started. We know, according to the World Bank, 1 million love-free young people in Tanzania are getting into the job market, and our capability to employ them is less than 10%, and this is since 2013. So this thing has already started like a long time ago, and according to World Bank again, the skills mismatch in Tanzania is very huge. Private companies are complaining about that. So the future of work is already here, and it's already disrupting us, and it's already making us to ask ourselves difficult questions. What should we do with our youth, not only in Tanzania, but in Africa, where 18 million youth are getting into the job?
Okay, so Jumanne, I shoot for the heart and I shoot directly. One of the things we're talking about is the future of work. But however, how much is this really about the future of nations? As we're sitting here and you're talking about, the future of work, computers taking over, et cetera, how much is this really about the future of what defines a nation or a sovereign state? For example, Estonia allows for digital citizenship, whereas in Tanzania, we're having issues with just having dual citizenship of someone who's potentially born to a Tanzanian parent and lives outside or has lived outside, let's assume in the US or in China, and China allows for dual citizenship. So who is the digital citizen? Is there such a thing as saying that the future of work, but then we are limiting citizenship into physical borders versus digital borders? And do we really have the capability as African nations to demarcate these digital borders, so to speak? And I think we lost Jumanne. Okay, guys, I think we lost Jumanne. Mwananchi, guys, can you try and see if we can catch up with Jumanne? And please, guys, the attendees, please join us in terms of asking questions. There we go. Hey, you're back.
Sorry, I had a technical glitch.
Pole. So as I was asking you, I'm sure is the new tax biting into your bundle? Okay, so as I was asking, I don't know how much of my question you heard about Estonia having digital digital citizenship, and we as Tanzanians are unable to fulfill the obligation of dual citizenship, not to get into politics, but just to get into the concept of what is a nation in this new digital space. You're talking about fourth industrial revolution. I could be sitting in Zanzibar and my actual employer will be in California, and I'm paying tax. So who gets my tax dollar? Does NSSF get my tax dollar, or do I contribute that money into my 4IR? No, sorry, 401k. 4IR versus 401k, sorry.
Yeah, so very interesting actually. So the thing is, things are changing. And it's not only the technologies that should change, the policies, the regulations should change. And that's why it's very important to have this harmonization. The conversation we've been having with the Minister of ICT recently around blockchain, around digital transformation, they are very healthy for this nation. Because as you say, the future of work will also come with a lot of challenges, not only on taxes, it will come with a lot of challenges, social security issues. It will come with a lot of challenges on quality of work. It will come with a lot of challenge in terms of managing expectations. I'm paying you money to do a certain work. I'm expecting a certain deliverable, but I'm getting a complete opposite of that. So those are the challenges we are expecting to see as the future of work evolve. But one thing which is extremely important right now is how our policymakers and regulators are well aligned with experts as well as researchers in the area, so that we can create regulations as well as friendly environment for that to happen. Because if you do premature regulation, you're definitely going to kill the innovation, which might create a lot of opportunity for young people. But also, if you allow for it to just happen just like that unregulated, chances are it might be abused. So it's a catch-22 situation.
But do you really think that regulators and governments can really regulate technology? I mean, look at the internet. Look at mobile money. Mobile money is turning, what is it, 10, 15, 20 years old? That's an adult going to college. And now you're coming into the era of trying to tax it and doing all this stuff. I mean, isn't it a little bit too late? Wanasema samaki mkunje angali mbichi. You know, bend the fish when it's still wet. But then if you don't have the capabilities to actually think through who in government, I mean, I see, Jumanne, you sit on various government advisory committees and bodies, right? There's what is this called? There's the one NEDC or something. So how do you get into that sort of thing? Two, are there enough Jumannes in there to actually influence the policies and the regulations in the right directions? Do they even want more Jumannes in there?
Okay, I really love your controversy. So how do I get in there? So first of all, I used to work with Postech, which you already know, for a couple of years as an employee of the government, which created a lot of opportunity for me to build network within the government because of people I work with. So one way is just to establish a relationship with people within the government and for the benefit of the country. Like, hey, I feel I can advise here. If you want my advice, I can share my understanding of this. So that's one way. The other way is just by being proactive, because if it's not working, it's not working for everyone. You know, if the government says stop to blockchain, or if they say stop to artificial intelligence, it's not just affecting me or Jumanne, it's affecting everyone. So it's our responsibility to demand a seat on the table to share our opinions about these technologies and about what is happening. Because if it's not happening, then it's going to affect us all. And that has been my point, been my motivation. Sometimes it consumes your time, it hits your resources, you feel like you have other important things to do. But if you don't do it, who else will do it? And that is my own definition of patriotism. I really feel like this is my own way of contributing. Whether I contribute in a digital economic blueprint, whether I contribute to a regulatory sandbox, whether I contribute to a new law about digital innovation, that's the only way I can be able to give back. So I didn't feel that's how I'm seeing it. And in terms of do they want more Jumannes or more Miayos in these kind of conversations and discussion? I'm really not sure. I can't say whether they want or they don't want because it won't be scientific, and I'm a scientist. What I'll say is they need. They need to have these people in those discussions. They need to have those people in rooms. And we need amalgam leadership. We need a blended leadership where they have experience, they've been in the game for so long, but things are changing and the days have changed a lot. You need new perspective, you need new perception, and of course, we're gonna be around longer than them. So,
okay, I hear what you're saying, and I hear how you're dancing around it. But it's I would say it's like in any company. When you talk about digitalization or digital transformation and bringing in new things, the old guards don't want to change, and that's the blood honest truth. Now, with the old guards not wanting to change, but yet in terms of strategy, you're talking about changing. I'll give you a very simple example. A few weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, Mama Samia spoke about we need to go into this blockchain issue, right? But in the same space, 2 weeks ago, we get into this whole taxation of mobile money, et cetera, et cetera. These are two contradicting things. One kills technology, the other one bolsters technology. So what also always baffles me is that even from a company's perspective, what you will have is you will have people who say, we want to digitalize, the future is digital, blah, 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 blah. And then when you tell them, hey, here's the digital invoice for us to digitalize, this is the way we need to go, then they don't do it. And that for me, that's a statement. I don't need you to touch on that. But however, if we were to look at our 60 million people in Tanzania, first, second, third, and fourth industrial revolution, where is the majority of our people?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question, and I've been getting it a lot from people saying maybe you're touching top layer of technology. You're talking about sexy stuff for people living in urban area. What about somebody in Namtumbo or Songea, somewhere there? So let me tell you some few important facts. Okay. First of all, Africa is getting more urbanized than ever before. So Africa will be more urbanized in the next few years compared to any time of the period ahead. Another thing which is also very important, as I told you, 15 of the fastest growing cities are all in Africa. You're getting me? Another thing that is another important fact, Africans are getting more educated. The middle class is also increasing, and all those are facts. So technology is no longer a luxury to us because a lot of these kids who are already in town right now, there's no way you're going to tell them to go back to the village or in the kulima. It's not working. Even in the village, the kids are driving border. They're not staying in the farms. And that's a fact. You're getting it. So ideally is we have to respond to these changes accordingly and strategize accordingly to what is needed. Now, going back to your question, I would say we need a blended approach. We need traditional industries as well as we need the new industries that are coming up. We don't need one or the other, so we need both of them. We can have traditional industries, and again, even for the traditional industries, I will encourage non-smokestack industries in places where we feel there's not any other option instead of putting those industries so that we can be able to create jobs. But in no way we should underestimate the role of technology and digital transformation, because that's where most of the job will come. I'll tell you right now, a young photographer in Dar es Salaam is getting more money than a low-level public employee. Is guaranteed to make $200 every weekend. For 4 weekends, that is $800. They don't need to be supported by their parent, and that's a fact. A graphic designer is making significant amount of money. A young person who is working as a social media influencer is making more money than a person I hired.
But Jumanne, wait. Compared to what? Okay. A statistician, a mathematics major who has a master's degree, has an undergraduate degree in discrete math or numerical analysis, wapo hapa chuo kikuu wana graduate, si ndio? Ukimpeleka kwenye kazi ya serikalini au an actuarian, laki 8 kwa mwezi, si ndio? Laki 8, 1.5 kwa mwezi. But the same guys were being employed by Tala to do the Tala modeling and stuff. They were getting $85,000 a month. So when you say that a photographer in Tanzania is making 250,000 shillings, which is $100 a week, so he's making $400 a week. Yet the guys who are actually building these systems out in Silicon Valley, in Israel, in China, these guys are making $3-4 million a year. So what is it? I mean, do you think that we are actually thinking big enough in terms of fourth industrial revolution? Because those guys are using the same laptops. That guy who's making $100 a week to write code, and he gets paid, you know.
I think, I don't know if you can hear me.
10x that a week working. In fact, these days you don't even have to work. Google says you don't even have to. So I'm saying, are we thinking big enough? Are we, when we talk about education, you know, you sit on the advisory board for ICT for DIT. What's that supercomputer doing at DIT? What is it crunching? Give it to us. Let us play with it. You know, you want us to do Bitcoin, you want us to do blockchain. Give it to us. Let's play with it.
Yeah.
But you're keeping it inside. What is it crunching? The number of flowers falling at Cocoa Beach.
Yeah. So the thing is, we have to start from somewhere,
no, Jumanne, this business of starting from somewhere, we've been saying this for the last 10 years.
No,
I'm 45. I moved to Tanzania when I was 27.
Listen to me, and you know this already. Silicon Valley is almost 70 years old. Silicon Da is less than 10 years old. You're getting me?
No. Silicon Da cannot be less than 10 years old, because my mother started the first computer training center in 1989. So if we count correctly, Silicon Da started in Kariako with My Computer, Agumba Computer, CTBA, Computer Center, Raha. Okay, we had Tritel, we had all those. It just depends on when you. So it's a matter of context of when you start counting.
So basically, outside me and you who are privileged to access those opportunities, because we were actually structured in a place where we can be able to access and afford those opportunities. Very young Tanzanians, and I mean very few Tanzanians have got access to computer before the 2010s, and that is a fact. I was studying at Tanzania. That's where I was exposed to computer science. I was in Form 2. And out of a school of 2,000 people, we had a computer lab with just 3 computers. And sometimes I was like, man, I was so lucky to even take a look into that computer lab. So again, leaving those things aside and coming back to the core conversation, I think we are facing some obstacles, yes, but we are heading to the right direction. The DIT discussion about the supercomputers is something which we have been pushing. Personally, I've been pushing about it. We started the Tanzania AI Lab for the specific reason. You need to build a community around artificial intelligence. You need to build talent and expert for those computers to be used. Otherwise, they're just going to be there. So ideally, it's a conundrum. Yes, you have the infrastructure, but you cannot capitalize on the infrastructure if you don't have talent and skills.
So Jumanne, in addition to that, before I jump, sorry for cutting you off, because we have to jump into the questions. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So are we users or creators? Are we adopters, or are we going to be creating? And is this going to be a new form of digital colonialism? You know, you get us addicted. You know, if you look at the United States, when the colonizers went into the United States, they took in alcohol. We know American Indians couldn't process alcohol very well, and that created a whole bunch of problems. When colonizers came to Africa, they brought religion and they brought other things. Okay, Now, what if they're bringing us WhatsApp and WeChat and all of that so that wanatupumbaza, and then we're not actually owning the narrative of any of these systems? What are we doing about that? Is the government looking, you know, I always hear the government talking about cyber security. No, is it cyber warfare? There's a difference between cyber security and cyber warfare, you know? And are we looking at those things in terms of we're actually being infiltrated from a technological perspective in a very different way? You look at now the United States says Huawei equipment can't be sold in the United States. TikTok cannot, they're looking at banning TikTok in the United States. What are we doing? We're just users.
Great. So can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So the thing is with the digital colonialism, I think I wrote a complete article about this, about Power 4.0 and the shifting of the global dynamics when it comes to the competition between technology and the political landscape in the world, but also as well as in Africa, and the roles that digital platforms can play. I think it's too late to say that we'll create our own version of WhatsApp to compete with WhatsApp, or our own version of Google to compete with Google. The only thing is that how do we create enough talent and skills that can capitalize on technology and digital transformation to solve our own problems? Because that is the most important part. Like, how do we create those talents to address our own local problems? And when it comes to international platforms, we can do what already other countries in advanced economies are doing, to have a candid and open conversation with these companies on how are they getting into their market, to revisit the privacy issues, to revisit regulation issues, to revisit their business model, to revisit their taxation policies and everything. We can actually do that. But saying that you can stop them because they're colonizing us, or saying that we can afford to get into a battle with them, these are the people who can influence the US election. These are the people who can influence how big brands in the world are being perceived. So it's not an easy war. It's a war that US is losing. It's a war that China is also losing in its own country. It's the likes of Alibaba and Tencent. So the issue is, how do you live with them in such a way that you create a win-win platform for your people so that they can benefit from this platform? You have ladies that are selling their stuffs on Instagram. They are completely relying on Instagram to generate money purely. You have governments that are lobbying for policy change. They are running campaigns around COVID-19 using Twitter and Facebook. So these platforms have become part of our lives. The issue is, how do we live with this platform side by side while protecting the interests of our people, as well as making sure our people, from a positive perspective, they are making the most out of this platform, and from the negative perspective, how we protect them from those negative consequences.
And that's what you do behind those government walls, try to influence them to understand the importance of this, right?
That's
so anyway, let's jump to some that's what you're trying to do. You need an army to do that. And I think alone you won't be able to achieve it. But let's move to some questions. If you can open the Q&A section, Jumanne. We have about 5 questions. I'll start from the middle with Usman Mchinja. He's asking, what do you think will be the suitable way for Tanzania to catch up with the digital transformation speed?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is we need a national digital strategy. I know that the ministry is currently working on some sort of
another one,
digital economic.
We need another one.
No, it's the same. No, it's the same one they're working on. It's the same one they're working on.
No, but we need another one, because if I recall correctly, the one Rwanda is using and be very successful was written in Tanzania and transported to Rwanda. So we need another one, a new version.
Okay, we need some budget. We need some kind of a strategy. And why do we need this strategy? Because this strategy will allow us as a nation, first of all, to communicate clearly to our partners, and as well as to other people in the ecosystem, what are our priorities when it comes to digital innovation, digital regulation, digital infrastructure, digital platform, digital skills, because it has to be very, very clear. Right now, if I'm running my activities at Sahara Ventures, it's very difficult to understand what are the government priority when it comes to digitization and how can I contribute into that. You are running
you're assuming the government knows what those priorities are.
I'm not assuming, and that's why we are working with them.
No, but I'm just asking. I know for a fact. I mean, I know. I'm no longer deep into it. But if we go back 10 years ago, the government didn't know what those priorities are. They looked to us, and that's why even when they gave out the mobile money licenses, those were test licenses. We're giving test licenses because they said, you know what, we don't really understand. We understand it sounds good, but you know, you go try this thing, and then we're going to keep looking and to see how this thing works for us, right? And then later they gave the test license, and that's why even the TCRA is one of the best regulators in Africa, and even I would dare say in developing country, because it allows for this test environment whereby it's not regulated. They just leave you alone for maybe 5 or 6 years to do what you need to do. So when you say we need more policies, more regulations, I think with more policies, more regulations, you're tying the feet, the legs, and the mouth.
Yeah, so basically what I mean, I don't mean they need to regulate, they need to facilitate, create some sort of a level playing field, especially for new and emerging technologies. There's no any regulation around blockchain, around artificial intelligence, around big data, around the Internet of Things, around additive manufacturing. And all these are new technologies, whether we want or not, they're coming to Tanzania. And in one way or the other, somebody needs to be able to oversee them. Because otherwise, if they're being misutilized, if somebody is using artificial intelligence to do remote diagnosis of a patient, and then eventually 40 Tanzanian dies, somebody had to be held accountable.
But Jumanne, that's already happening through the use of internet and platforms sitting outside of Tanzania.
Yeah.
You know, the platforms are sitting outside of Tanzania. So you're saying you need, I'll give you an example. If I set up a product that does the same thing that WhatsApp is doing in Tanzania, and I'm registered in Brela, I pay taxes. But WhatsApp doesn't pay taxes for the phone calls that we're doing. Zoom, the platform we're using now to do this thing, it's paying no taxes to Tanzania. So why are you doing it? It's unfair. Why regulate your own citizens and pinch them down when there's international guys who their platforms are being used on our phones and you're not regulating them?
You're not getting my point. My point here is not to regulate and push for taxation or cripple local businesses.
No, let's leave taxation out. Just the regulation aspect.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the next question. Let's leave that alone. Bakari Machumbo, our MD, is saying Africa is 18 years old Africans are 18 years old on average. Then he's talking about the mean age, fairly young. How useful this is this fact, or how do we make it useful considering following? If you are to place Africa or Tanzania's majority between 1 IR and 4 IR, where are the majority? Where does the majority fall? Where will African leaders, both political and business, etc., be? How do these leaders then take their citizens to be ready for 4 IR challenges and opportunities? And in fact, I'm going to add to Bakari's question is, should we as Africans be really looking at 4 IR, or should we be looking at 5 IR?
Let me tell you a fact. Even if we want to go to 2 IR or 3 IR, we don't have the money to do that, because those revolutions are based on brick and mortars. You have to build things from the scratch. Do you think we have money to build the toy cities across Tanzania and call them smart cities? We don't have money to do that. Do you think we have money to build industries from the scratch and buy heavy machinery from China? We don't have money to do that. Do you think we can build industry right now competitively and produce product, gadgets that can competitively compete with products that are coming from China and other mature economies? We can't. Do you think we can build industries traditional industry based on steam engine and everything and build competitive cars that can compete with the like of Tesla. It doesn't make sense. The only opportunity we have right now is what the digital transformation is presenting to us. A kid in rural Morogoro can attain the same knowledge, the same code as a kid who is living in, I don't know, Silicon Valley. That is what digital transformation is bringing to us. When you have a nation where the age average is 17.9, by the way, that's Tanzania, all you need to do is to focus on the future, is to create a loom for these people to survive what is coming. We're getting more urbanized. Most of the Tanzanian cities are getting more urbanized, as well as since we want to build a lot of physical industry, I'm not sure if we can be able to reach that KPI, we can be able to build just enough. Then why not capitalize on digital transformation? Why not create digital talent and then export this digital talent into other matured economy? You have platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, Skillshare, where they're looking to recruit talents from across the globe. Why not prepare young Tanzanians for those opportunities? Why not?
I agree with you.
You're getting where I'm. You're getting where
I get where you're going to. Where you're going to, but I still think what you're trying to say is that we have money to consume cars, but we don't have the money to build our own factories to build our own cars. That's
not what I meant. What I meant is,
okay, go ahead.
If we want industries, we have to be very strategic on what kind of industries do we want, because we've done similar mistakes.
So let's say, for example, Tanzania. What kind of employee can we export from Tanzania? So, for example, when you go to Dubai, you find a lot of Filipinos in the resorts, in the taxi drivers. You find a lot of guys from Bangladesh. When you go to Philippines, you find that they actually have an industry whereby they create employees that are exportable for those sorts of jobs. So what I'm hearing from you is that as Tanzania, we need to be able to export a certain type of talent out. But then have we really defined what we are really good at? Yani kwa mfano ni hivi, kama sisi tukatengeneza mouse girl wazuri, basi tutengeneze mouse girl waende nje warudishe hela in terms of remittance, si ndio? Kama tunatengeneza madokta na manesi. There was a time Tanzania was exporting a lot of doctors and nurses to Botswana, South Africa, and things of that nature. Then let's focus on that. But when it comes to the 4IR, right? There's a question here from Mwasi. She says, does the requirements needed for the future of work promote the digital divide? Meaning that those of us in urban areas, well, I'm translating, but I'm trying to think of a question. Maybe you've understood it differently. But the kid that you're talking about in Morogoro, the fact that he's working on a 2G network, and I'm sitting, and my kid is sitting at some school in Masaki working on a 4G network, and then he has unlimited internet when he gets home. Those digital skills of him playing on his phone all day, wakati this other kid has a cracked phone like mine right here, and this section of the phone doesn't work, only this section of the phone. Is that fair?
Whether it's fair or not, it is not fair. It's not fair at all. Is it promoting digital divide? In one way or the other, it actually, yes, promoted digital divide. But is it necessary to be done? It is necessary. I told you how my career started. I have my first access. I was raised in a normal Tanzanian family. I had my first access to PC, Niko Azania, mwaka wa pili. Out of 2,000 students, kuna computer tatu tu. I just had a chance to pop up within a computer lab, and then I fell in love with the computer. That's how my career started, coding using MS-DOS. It was a Pentium 3, a very slow computer, but again, it opened up a window for me to understand this industry, to build my career to where it is today. My point here is, whether we want it or not, digital transformation is here and it's happening and it's going to affect us all. Are we preparing our youth to capitalize on what is happening? That is up to us to make those important decisions. Because if we don't, this army of young people, especially in urban Africa, who are educated and they don't have anything to do, in one way or the other, it's no longer a time bomb, it's already a bomb. You can see if you post something on Twitter today or on Facebook, for no good reason, people start to insult you, they'll start to call you names. It tells you a lot about our intellectuals out there. Ni vijana hawa Tanzania wamesoma, but they don't have anything to do. They can just stay online all day insulting people kuanzia asubuhi mpaka jioni. And they're increasing. They're not decreasing in any way. So if there's any way we can be able to address this using and I can let's just ignore the word 4IR. So basically digital transformation, not even robots, not even blockchain, not even artificial intelligence.
But then Jumanne, if the issue, there's another question from an anonymous that says, will the future employees from the rural areas benefit from future technologies? And that goes down to the fact that, unajua tuna tabia ya kusema kwamba kuna vitu fulani tunataka sisi tu. One of the downfalls of one of the companies that I used to work for is that they felt that the devices that they were doing or the service that they were giving was only for a certain caliber of people. So umenielewa? Yani kwamba bwana mtu wa Tandale hahitaji hicho kitu, but doesn't mean that Tandale hamna digital talent. Au mtu labda wa Malinyi hahitaji hicho kitu. What are they going to do with it? When we were building the business cases to get internet into rural areas, there was the whole idea of kwanza hawana hata hiyo hela ya kutumia. Sio umeelewa? Sasa kama sisi wenyewe as the people who are the gatekeepers think so lowly of our own citizens, the outsider investor who's coming in atamfikiriaje mkulima ambaye anataka mtoto wake atoke kule porini aje kwenye hiyo digital revolution? Amesikia hii podcast, amesema okay mwanangu, mimi ndapiga uagagaza, ndauza mahindi yangu yote na ng'ombe zangu zote uweze ukaenda ukasome hii 4IR. Wakati tunaona kwamba kupeleka hiyo 4IR vijijini, it doesn't make sense.
So basically it's first of all it's a wrong assumption. Technology can be adapted anywhere. I was just talking to someone alikuwa anasema anataka ku raise hela kwa ajili ya kwenda kutrain watu namna ya kutumia software yake. Nikamwambia tayari umeshafail. Kwa sababu nobody analepelekwa shule kufundishwa how to use Facebook. Nobody was sent to school to be taught how to use mobile money. There was no classroom to teach someone how to use WhatsApp. So basically at the bottom line is that you just need to design for the user. You just need to understand what problem are they facing. If I'm a grandmother and I'm sitting in the village and the only way I can receive money is through mobile money, I will make sure I learn and understand how to use mobile money because it's solving a real problem. So when it comes to adoption of technology in grassroots community and in rural areas, the only issue is that if we are going to create digital solutions, then they should really focus on addressing the problem facing those communities. Because if you're solving a problem, they will definitely adapt. But if you're creating Uber for villagers to move around and it doesn't add anything, any value to what they do on day-to-day basis, then they won't use it.
Lakini nani wewe Jumanne, katika hawa vijana wote ambao walikuwa Silicon Valley, kuna mmoja hata unaweza kumvuta ukasema kwamba anaielewa Tanzania ya kijijini au anaelewa tu matatizo na okay, I hate to say this, but they're replicating the likes of Uber and Airbnb and Booking.com. Are they really going back home to Iringa, to Idodi, to actually look at how digital can solve problems in Idodi? Does anybody want to do that? You said it yourself. Most people are going from rural to urban. Wote tunakuja mjini. Mimi mamangu ametoka Mdagulo. Kufika Mdagulo akafika Mbeya mjini. Akasimama pale. Aliposimama pale akaja Dar es Salaam. Chuo kikuu cha Dar es Salaam, si ndio? Akakaa pale. Sasa hivi unamwambia mama twende Mdagulo, twende tukafanya kazi, anakuambia no way. But anyway, let's move to another question by Kamanga Kapinga. He's saying, I was an investment advisor in the capital market space in the past. Pension funds invested heavily in listed entities, Vodacom, CRDB, Swissport, and recently in real estate and sugar plantations. Any discussions to bring pension funds to the digital space and government push maybe? Instead of chasing angel investors, they seem to be heavily guided by government policies of the day. What do you think? Are you talking about that with the minister? Kwamba NSSF atupe 10% of their budget, of the investment budget, aweke kwenye 4IR type of companies?
Yeah, so we are advising it. Ghana wana kitu kinaitwa Ghana Venture Capital Trust Fund na wana kitu kinaitwa Ghana Angel Investors Network. Tumekuwa tukipush kwa watu wa National Economic Empowerment Council kufikiria kwenye hii mifuko ya serikali walikuwa nayo, kama kuna baadhi ya mifuko inaweza ikawa designed specifically for startups, kwa sababu kilichokuwepo sasa hivi, umesema hiyo point mwanzo, kuna a lot of assumption that the government knows some of these things, ila kikweli we need to work with them and also open up the door for them to understand. For example, most of the funds that are available for use right now, they were designed to address issues facing traditional SMEs and not startups. Funds zinatolewa kwa magrupu ya vijana 10 mpaka 15, lakini wewe Mihayo unajua kabisa hakuna startup inayoanza na watu 15. So a startup is always 2 or 3 people. Kwa hiyo kuna kuchange hiyo kwanza notion, kuwasaidia watu wa serikali kuelewa what startup is, how startup operates. Kwa mfano startup nyingi zina base kwenye intangible assets, valuation yake iko kwenye copyrights, iko kwenye trademarks and patenting, kitu ambacho traditional SMEs wala hana muda nacho. Kwa hiyo kuna hilo eneo ambalo tunajitahidi kweli through Tanzania Startup Association kuwafahamisha watu wengi wa serikali na namna gani hizi startups zina operate. Lakini
Jumanne, kwa nini tunafika wakati ni kama vile tunaibembeleza serikali? Kwa nini inafika wakati ni kama vile why are IT people or ICT people always downgraded? Kwa bana WhatsApp yangu haifanyi kazi, au hebu niinstalie kitu fulani. Wewe Jumanne, I'm sure at your level ukiwa huko Dodoma mtu anakwambia bana hebu niwekee ile kitu inaitwa Zoom hapa. Don't you feel kidogo kwamba you're being downgraded? Kwa sababu wewe hapo ulipofika kweli, wewe mwenyewe inawezekana kwamba hata hujui kuinstall Slack.
Yeah,
you don't have to answer that. Let me move to another question. Let's go on a lighter note and move away from the government and go into the private sector. Sebastian Nko is asking, as employers, how can we determine the value skills relevant to the future of work marketplace? And how can we increase the value of human labor in this 4IR?
Wow, that's a very, very good question. Extremely good question. So I think, first of all, most of the local companies, especially in Africa, they think they are future-proof. That most of these easy technology, in one or the other, they're not touching them, and they feel they're toy technologies. They don't have direct impact to the competitive advantage of the business. I'll say if there's any CEO or managing director or a person sitting at the C-level listening to this conversation, these technologies are here and will definitely disrupt you. Some companies will use these technologies to do sentiment analytics, brand analysis, to improve consumer retention, to improve quality of the services they offer. And it's your responsibility to try to see how these technologies can add value in your own organization or in your own company. The future of the media industry will so much be disrupted by these technologies. So one thing for sure, what you need to do is internally revisit your own digital transformation strategy as a company. Look into your own human resources internally, what needs to do or needs to be done to improve your human resource. Revisit your infrastructure, if it's digital infrastructure, if it's a policy infrastructure, as well as company and organizational culture should be transformational. Mihayo talked about change management issues and resistance to change, and people not being ready to cut money for digital stuffs as well as they pitch they want digital transformation. So for a private company, capitalizing and putting together a digital transformation strategy, investing on human resource, and establishing and investing in infrastructure changes is very, very important.
Jumanne, do you think that Tanzanian private sector is any better than government in terms of them investing in digital transformation and understanding it?
Do you really want me to respond to that?
Yes, I do. I actually do, because I think it's beneficial for people to understand that unaweza ukawa unailaumu serikali lakini huku tena mtaani huku not really any different. Yani understanding yao iko pale pale.
Yeah, tuna hiyo changamoto kwa sababu sisi tuna department ya emerging and future tech consulting, where we advise corporate companies around digital transformation. And you're right, it's very, very difficult for a management level personnel in Tanzania to understand these things. It requires a lot of coffee breaks and teas and meetings and practical cases to show them that they need this. And it is not their fault because it also being informed with the market dynamics and what others are doing. So if you're all at the same level, it's very difficult to see the disruption. But if you move in more matured market where the competition is real and the adoption of technology is massively, you can clearly see there's a need for me as a banker, I need to know about Bank 4.0, so those kinds of stuff.
So Jumanne, what you're trying to say is that we live in the land of the blind, and there's a few guys with one eye, and some of them even half vision, some of them are colorblind, and those are the guys who are basically driving us around. And those of us who have two eyes are actually the outliers. And when we talk about digital transformation, etc., it becomes very difficult for it to be palatable for these people because it's extremely difficult for them to actually want to change. Naturally, people don't like change. But then there's a comment from Joe, I think it's Joseph. He says, whenever we talk about innovation, technology, and future of work, we seem to be targeting the youth. In my opinion, it is high time we change this narrative. Now, this is for everybody, regardless of their age, which is very true. And I was hoping that Balozi Mpungwe had texted me and said he would join us today, and I was hoping that he would be on here. And if he's on here, we give him a platform because I think he's one of the biggest evangelists in terms of technology. Much as the youth need to prepare and be ready to face the modern world, people in positions of power who make policies and basically shape this world for the youth aren't youth themselves. Whenever the BBC is policy making position here of us addressing the youth, they distance themselves and retreat to their own businesses as usual ways of working. BBC's meaning before computers, born before computers. We won't get far with these scenarios. So what I'm hearing, Jumanne, is that we need to ask Mama Samia for an appointment, and then also we can volunteer to be her digital advisors, transformation advisors for this country. So if Mama Samia, you're hearing us out there, shikamoo sana mama, lakini sisi tunaomba kazi ya kukushauri on the next 50 years of Tanzania into the future. My friend Harry here says banks were late to move into mobile money, now using their muscle to squeeze the telcos out of the space. What's your opinion on that, Jumanne? Not to lose you any sponsors from the banks or from the telcos, but I think this is an interesting point right here. I mean, do you think it came about naturally, or kulikuwa kuna mtu akaenda pale akasema kwamba bana tunaumia, waachia watu wengine wapite?
You know, corporate wars are very interesting, and you never know what happened. It might be that is what happened. I'm not sure, and don't quote me. It's not scientific. But from my perspective, it's not good, and it needs to be revisited. If we are speaking about promoting 4IR and digital transformation, we need strategies to reach out to more people and get more people moving toward cashless economy, and that should be our priority. But with what is happening, it's very, very challenging to actually create a room for people to be able to adapt to these new technologies and capitalize on the transformation, what is happening. Whether the bank did it or telco did it or who does it, I'm not so sure, and I can't comment on that.
Okay. Well, I have a very strong opinion about that, especially the fact that the loser is always the one who's first to go crying to mommy. And hey, sawa. Okay, we have a few more questions, Jumanne, and I think we can keep going. Are you okay with time so we can ask these questions?
Yeah, I still have like 15 minutes, and I'm also seeing Balozi Mpungwe.
Yuko wapi Balozi? Umemwona?
Namuona hapa kwenye speakers. I don't know ametokea.
Okay. Frank, can you please allow Balozi to put on his speaker and talk to us a little bit and give us some words of wisdom? And while Frank is doing that, it says here, with the pandemic in progress, and Jumanne, you better answer this question correctly because this is my wife, okay? Yasmin Charlie is asking, with the pandemic in progress, how can the development in 4IR help the progress and development of Tanzania, especially in the private sector?
Wow, that's a very good question. We were doing a certain intervention during the second wave of the pandemic, and we learned a lot actually. So during this time, we can actually be able to see how 4IR technologies can be able to help businesses kwenye issues za delivery, kwenye issues market access. This is the perfect time for innovation, especially tech innovations that can actually create opportunities for other private sector that were completely traditionally operating offline. Restaurants ambazo zinafungwa zinaweza zikatumia platform kama Food Sasa for delivering food. You know, people who used to meet and do physical meeting, now they can move digitally and adapt to digital platforms to do their meetings. Digital transactions, kuna tozo, kwa hiyo sasa sisi tunafanyaje? But basically 4IR technologies can play a very important role kipindi hiki cha pandemic, especially when you allow businesses endelee cooperate na create new ways of people getting employed through gig economy.
That's great. So, but then also to make it clear is that there's also double tariffing, in the sense that, for example, it costs Amazon maybe $15 to send a package from the US here. Let's assume we want to send this phone. It will cost Amazon $15. Lakini sisi huku tukitaka kutuma mzigo wetu kupeleka kule, tuna minimum ni $115,000. Naona balozi is logged on. Balozi, naomba nichukue, shikamoo mzee. Naomba nichukue nimuulize swali moja la mwisho mheshimiwa, alafu nikuachie, let you close our meeting for us. Mboni Kibelo, Dr. Mboni Kibelo is asking, you talk of building talent and skills quite a lot. What initiatives are out there to collaborate and with capacity building institutions such as universities who are an important part of the ecosystem? This is a good question. We're talking about building hubs. A lot of hubs in other countries sit within the universities. Sisi tuko busy tunajenga hubs wenyewe. Ni kama vile Enron alivyoamua kujenga fiber afu akaenda belly up.
Yeah, great. So to universities, first, universities needs to change. They need to move to third generation universities. They need to embrace more innovation and entrepreneurship beyond just research and academics. That has been my call to Tanzanian universities. Second, universities needs to look outside their traditional curriculum and manuals set up. There is a lot of good causes. I already said about Google Digital Skills Program, IBM Digital Skills Programs. They can integrate this program within the academic setup. I know it's difficult, but they can find...
Lakini mbona tukienda UDOM, ile Microsoft Lab ilikuwa inafungiwa na ukiingia ndani lazima uvue viatu shehe. Hivi vitu vilishafanyika, ndio maana mimi narudi kwenye issue moja. The mentality of the BBCs need to change. If you don't give the kids the computers to play with, unakumbuka Jumanne, ngoja nikwambie. Unakumbuka enzi ya Kideo? Ulikuwa una lile kabati kubwa lile ambalo yani Jumapili ndio linatoka chumbani kwa baba, afu mnaweka ile video ile, si ndio? Sasa hatuwezi kwenda kwenye enzi hizo. Hizi kompyuta inatakiwa tuwape watoto wachezee, lakini sasa kama computer lab mpaka uje uvue viatu, ukifika pale kuna carpet, kuna nini? How are we going to innovate in that sort of unfriendly, learning unfriendly environment?
Yeah, so my point
That's why
is, I know where you're coming from. I think we just need to create more Amimpungo and more Mshindas. And what do I mean by that? We just need to have a blended leadership, a cross-generational leadership, where you have senior citizen, people with experience who have been in the industry for so long, also championing for this kind of conversation. And then you need to have the young people also championing for the same conversation. Okay. Because what I mean by that is, you need to do change management, and change management issues are very difficult. People tend to listen to you when you look like them. People tend to fund you when you look like them. And that's a fact. If I just go like now and talk to an older person about cryptocurrencies and money, which is a can't touch, it's called virtual currency. Then they'll be like, Jumanne.
Lakini unasahau kwamba, okay, before, not to cut you off, but we'll move to Balozi Yami in a very short while. But one of the questions I also want to ask Balozi Yami is that the graduates of the graduates from African universities from the 1970s to the early 80s, what is their responsibility? Kwa sababu kama nyie ndio wazazi wetu na nyie ndio mlio benefit kwenye uhuru wa hii nchi, mkasomeshwa bure, mkapanda mabasi bure, mnatoka vijijini kwenu na vocha mpaka mkafika hapo mlipofika. Lakini sasa hivi tunaona mmekaa kimya, kama anavyosema Jumanne kwamba nyie hapo tukija kwenu na ideas nzuri amuinvest kwenye ideas zetu, tukija kwenu na mambo mapya hamtaki kuinvest. Sasa wale zile graduates, na najua Balozi, it's a bit personal, lakini najua kwamba graduating class yenu kuanzia 1972 mpaka 1980 ndio uongozi wa nchi ambao bado mko hai na bado mko thriving. Kwa nini hatusikii sauti zenu, Balozi? Wakati nyie ndio mliosoma, mmepelekwa ma Harvard, ma Oxford, ma Cambridge, sijui ma University of Bangalore kwa hela ya wakulima babu zetu. Nimemaliza mzee, karibu sana mzee, nimeanza na moto mwingi sana.
Thank God I graduated with your mom, so the answer is very easy. But to be serious, firstly, I want to thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I've been listening I lost the first 10 minutes. I was out of my house, but I followed up. I think what initially attracted me was the subject of discussion today, which was the future of work. And maybe I want to comment on that one, that with all these changes, work will continue to be there. So initially you asked, Wilma, whether there'll be work or what type of work. Work will always be there. What is going to change, and will change significantly with the fourth industrial revolution, will be the type of jobs to do that work. Certainly, developments that are being brought about by fourth industrial revolution, big data, the race between AI and the biological brain, analytics, blockchain technologies, 3D printing, and all this that you people are very much versed about, will change the type of jobs, and we put new requirements. So, and you recall, and all of you were there when Jumanne embarrassed me by asked me to speak on short notice at the last Sahara Sparks 2 years ago. I gave you an example of someone who in Cape Town who intended to sue all the they are giving out loans to these innocent souls for causes which they know at the end of when they graduate, they won't find the jobs because they are being given wrong education and those jobs will not be there. So I think the biggest challenge about the future of jobs, as I said, work will still, future of work will still be there. But how is it done? It's the future of jobs. So are we evolving policies, and in this case, education policies, that is catering for the jobs of the future, that we are envisioning the future that is driven by fourth industrial revolution, by analytics, by big data, by blockchain technologies, by robotics and all these things. Are we prepare our generation? Are we envisioning that future and prepare our education system to produce those kind of skills that will be required in the new world of the fourth industrial revolution? So this is the challenge, and this is where we have to have conversation. But outside that, it's the bigger question that we have been discussing all along. It's the entire dynamic of the fourth industrial revolution. It is here, but unfortunately in Tanzania, We've been talking about it for ages, mostly outside the policy-making circles. But and from the government, okay, I've been encouraged that the new cabinet at least has a minister in charge of ICT. But still, we are far from it, in the sense we don't have policy for the fourth industrial revolution, for digital transformation. And that is the starting point. You need a policy framework that recognizes what is happening in the rest of the world today in the space of digital transformation, turn it into a policy framework with clearly defined strategies in a number of areas, strategies in terms of education, strategies in terms of infrastructure, strategies in terms of prioritization of type of investments that need to be put, and strategies that have clear KPIs and which are measurable, over time, to see that if it is a journey from Dar es Salaam to Morogoro, then you know you are at Ubungo, you are at Kibaha, you are at Chalinze, and it shows you that you are indeed traveling to Morogoro. This needs to be done, and therefore, certainly, it's not just a fashion for the industrial revolution. It's an imperative, and much more for countries like Tanzania, for African countries. These are countries which are well endowed with all sorts of resources. So, and if these new technologies that are being brought about by fourth industrial revolution, it means that you can introduce more efficiency in exploiting these resources and increasing higher productivity, and therefore generate much more wealth than in the previous ways of doing things. And a number of other advantages. You have been discussing about the dichotomy between rural and urban Tanzania. Last year, on the onset of COVID, I was at my farm in Ifakara for 6 months. But you were involved there when I won the e-Gazette, whatever, from Mwananchi. It was out from my farm there, which is on the fringes of the Silo.
Yes.
I could read newspapers published in Dar es Salaam much earlier than the people in Dar es Salaam, because I was able to access to digital edition of Mwananchi, of Citizen, and other newspapers. I could do all my banking. I've never seen, for the entire 6 months that I was at my farm, I never walked into any banking hall. I could do all my transactions right there on my laptop. So you can even narrow the gap between rural and urban, for as long as you send the infrastructure there. In Tanzania, we've started. There's this Mkongo wa Taifa, which is almost touching every district in Tanzania. So those are the kind of infrastructure requirements that need to be worked out and narrow the gap between urban and rural areas. And okay, finally, the generation. I think you are throwing it to the generation of your mom and me. I think.
Yes, very much so. I'm very bitter about that. Kwa sababu sisi wengine tumechukua mikopo kusoma bana. Tumeosha vyombo wenyewe, mlikuwa mnapewa ticket, mnaenda Harvard wapi?
Yes. Unfortunately or unfortunately, my generation of Tanzanians, apart maybe from President Kikwete, the rest of us, our historical role was we were condemned to be service generation. My generation of how should I classify myself? But for us who at independence, that's when we were starting school, and it was the time that this country didn't have manpower to run the administration and parastatals and all these things. So my generation was just for service provision. That's why I ended up to be a diplomat, carrying briefcases for the politicians until I retired. But I think going forward into the future, and you don't have to carry this country going forward by relying on rear view mirror, what happened in the past. I think the responsibility of taking this country ahead is yours, and you are the ones who would appreciate and understanding the challenges of fourth industrial revolution and the opportunities. So you are the ones who should take the responsibility to get Tanzania into digital journey that it's supposed to take. I may pause there. Thank you.
Okay. Balozi, mimi nilikuwa na swali lingine.
Yeah.
Unajua, you know that for a fact that one of the things you talked about clear KPIs and more efficient. More efficient means that more clear KPIs and more efficiency will also mean that there is greater transparency, which also means that we will have better clarity to where money is coming from and where money needs to go to. For example, mimi personally kwenye hili swala la kodi ambayo imewekwa kwenye mobile money, mimi naliangalia tofauti kidogo. Nasema kwamba kama mtu anatuma mobile money kutoka kijijini kwako Ifakara ikaenda kwenye kijiji kingine, hile originating tunayo GPS yake. Why can't that money that was taxed in that area be actually used from where that money was collected from? Meaning kwamba ishuke tena iwende kwenye budget za serikali za mitaa, etc., etc. So that is the power of technology. Lakini ikienda kwenye central coffers, hiyo ndio inaanza kuleta tatizo. So once we create these digital systems, and for me, this has always been my fight. Whenever I talk to clients, I tell them, when you put digital into your systems, it creates transparency. Na unaona hela inavuja wapi. Labda sababu moja ambayo sisi digital people tunapingwa sana ni kwa sababu one of the things that we do solve is the issue of corruption and theft. Kwa sababu balozi, ukiweka CCTV nyumbani kwako, unamulika mwizi ni nani?
Yeah, okay. I think, with your permission, I think the problem is more than the new taxation on mobile financial transfers. I think we have to go back and review our entire tax philosophy. We have a tendency here, leave alone the mobile money tax. We tend to our philosophy of taxation. It tends to focus more on revenue collection, but never have we thought for a while and consider taxation as a strategy for growth. So that once you take taxation as a strategy for growth, and you apply it accordingly in a sector that you want to grow, then you can allow, you can relax a bit so that to allow growth, and then maybe tax it later when it is mature. Where you think the growth is, will not be affected by taxation, you can tax. So the mobile tax is just one area, but I think on the bigger picture, we need as a nation to change our taxation philosophy and focus and use it more as an instrument of growth or strategy of growth than a mere function of revenue collection. I'll give you an example. Today, Hong Kong is the biggest exporter of wine in the world, and they don't have a single grape. Dodoma has more grapes than Hong Kong, but Hong Kong is the biggest exporter of wine. Why? The governor of Hong Kong, way back in the 70s, felt it was logical to allow importation of wine from all over the world duty-free. They buy in bulk, and then they bring it to Hong Kong, and then they bottle it and brand it and blend it and send it to the rest of the world. So what they forego as tax for importation of wine in bulk, they've created a huge industry of logistics, warehousing, packaging, and which is bringing more money than whatever tax that they would have collected from the importation of that wine. So this is how you play around with taxation and use it as a growth strategy rather than mere function of revenue collection. So in the case of this tax, well, I wouldn't talk much because I'm a stakeholder and as the chairman of one of the telcos. But the point I want to make here, and if there's anybody from the government, when we talk about stakeholder consultation, we should take this concept seriously. It's not just a matter of ticking the box. I know, because I'm from telco, I know there was consultation between telco companies and the Minister of Finance and the Minister of IT before the tax was put. And the caution was given in good time that, you know, you guys, the disposable income of these Tanzanians is very much limited. You introduce more cost to it, they will spend less. And this is exactly what is happening. So they were cautioned in good time. But unfortunately, sometimes we say this kukutana wadau, you stakeholder consultation is just to tick the box, in case World Bank or IMF wants to know, you know, we show them that we met them. But the message to the government is that we should take these consultations very seriously, because from these organizations, these companies, even your community as young tech people here, you have a lot of knowledge. A lot of it is not available in government, and you can make it available to the government free of charge. And in fact, you'll be very happy if you can contribute to your country. So my other appeal is that these consultations should be taken more seriously than they have been taken so far. We can avoid some of these pitfalls. Yeah.
Asante sana Balozi. Nadhani mgeni wetu rasmi alikuwa Jumanne, but I think Balozi tunakukaribisha sana kwenye maongezi yetu ya teknolojia, na teknolojia ni basically ni teke lile linalokujia kutokana na hizi terms and conditions. Lakini kwa wazee wengine wale BBC, unaona kabisa kwamba huyu mzee wangu huyu ameamua kwamba amevaa njuga ya teknolojia na hilo teke limemkosa. Jumanne, please, your closing remarks. Balozi, nashukuru sana. Asante sana.
Thank you so very much. And it makes me get younger and younger when I listen to your contribution.
Balozi, we know you're retired, but you're not tired. Jumanne, your closing remarks.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much to you and to the team at the Barrier and Mwananchi for putting this together. I've learned a lot, and I think some of the questions you've asked me have made me to reflect and to try to see what are the best way we can continue to do what we do. But another thing which I would like to say is it's always good. Unajua ni nchi yetu wote, it's our own country, and we enjoy having this cross-generation conversation, perspective from the elder people, perspective from the youth for the benefit of the country. I really feel it's very important. We should have more of these conversations. Na niombe tu watu wa Mwananchi na Habari Hub, some of hii michango na mingine na role kubwa sana ya kupray, kuipush huko kwenye decision makers, na watu wakisoma kwenye magazeti au kisikia kwenye taarifa za habari, they take these things more serious. Issue ya 4IR na digital transformation is not a luxury. To a country like Tanzania, it's not a luxury, it's a must. Vijana wako wengi na wako kwenye mazingira magumu, kazi hawana, we need to create opportunities for them. And my call is we should continue these conversations. Na wherever you are, kwa role yako, play your role so that we can be able to contribute for a better Tanzania. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manne, and thank you everyone for listening. If I missed out your question, naomba mtaninuia radhi, lakini I think we had a lively event. Again, we've gone over. I think we need to change our structure to an hour and a half, and it gets exciting. Our next session, fortunately, I know who it's going to be. We're going to have two ladies who are experts in HR, and they're going to talk about HR hiring skills and what you need to have on your CV for digital transformation. Nadhani kwa wao tunaosikia tuwaambie wenzetu, it's going to be on the last Tuesday of August, same time, same place. Asanteni sana na karibuni sana. Frank, over to you. Please shut down.